Yo, it's Ryan with Hunt Vision. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope to give you a return on it. Let's get it. And we are live. Welcome to the third episode of the Hunt Vision podcast. Today we are going to be talking about my Missouri whitetail hunt, and it was a fun one. I was actually able to harvest a pretty decent 8-point, and this was the heaviest deer I've ever shot. It weighed 210 pounds field dressed. I believe the heaviest I had shot before that in my life was 195 field dressed. I grew up hunting in southern Illinois, and for some reason, 190, 195 is a giant body for down there. So yeah, this deer weighed 210 and was by far the biggest bodied deer I've ever shot. So that was super cool. And I was also able to have my buddy Quentin with me and filming the whole thing. So yeah, that'll be a pretty cool episode and awesome to make those memories with friends. But basically the plan for this trip was a bunch of buddies that live in different places. We're all going to convene for whitetail hunting and waterfowl opener in Missouri. Quentin lives in Illinois. Pete lives in Illinois. Kylan and Mitch live in Missouri, and then I live in Colorado. So the plan was for all of us to get together in Missouri and hunt for a week or so. And yeah. So I drove down from Colorado on the 25th of October, and pretty long drive. I am getting used to driving by now. And then we woke up to pouring rain on day one, the 26th. So we took that opportunity to hang some new sets and get in, hopefully scent free, hang some new sets that we thought looked good and get out. And that actually paid off later on. So day one afternoon, the rain finally cleared up and I was able to set kind of an observations set. And basically there's CRP and like cedar bedding behind the stand and just an open field in front. And you're basically, cutting these deer off going from one to the other, or just big open fields. And all the bedding behind you, you're hoping to just see them walking around in either one of them. So it's kind of an observation spot. And it was super cool, super pretty, stay in location, and had an awesome sunset. I think I saw 7 does that night. No bucks. One of the bucks we were after there, it was basically like 135 inch old 8-point that had been daylight in there, but he never turned up that night. And this was kind of a new style of hunting than I was used to for whitetails. Growing up on the family farm, we kind of have thickets for bedding, and then we have food plots, a few food plots. So the way you're hunting them when they're not rutting, I mean, obviously rut, you're gonna get in, as many funnels or corridors as you can. But when you're not in the rut, you're hunting either food or, late season, you can kind of hug tight to those bedding areas. So I'm kind of used to, I don't know if I would call it a home farm, but hunting a farm, where the deer live on yours or the neighbors more often. They're not just traveling through. So I guess you could consider it a home farm. And this style of hunting that we did in Missouri was very much more centered towards travel corridors, which was pretty good for, the end of October, early November time frame, because they're checking scrape lines. They're, checking scent for any does coming in heat early. So those bucks are cruising those travel corridors. So this was a very cool learning experience for me, hunting those smaller tracts of land. And from what I could tell in my couple of days of hunting this style, was you can typically expect to see less deer than if you have food or have the bedding. But if if you're in that end of October, early November time frame, even though you're seeing less deer, the chances of seeing a bigger buck are better. From what I saw, because these bucks are on their feet traveling for scrape lines and hot does instead of just checking out food, or if you're holding that deer in his bedding, he may not come out yet, to food, or maybe you want to leave it alone. But these smaller travel corridor tracks, I believe, my observations that you don't have to worry as much about pressure if you're hunting the right time of year that as you do when you're hunting near bedding or a food source that they're hitting often. These travel corridors, basically, you just got to catch them at the right time coming through. So if you are hunting it every night, maybe you bump 3 or 5 deer one night sitting in a funnel. I think that you're getting a new 3 to 5 deer the next night, and that new 5 deer could hold that big buck that's traveling and searching. So that was super cool. I think those travel corridors type spots are basically just about time. I mean, obviously anything with trees, deer, whitetail hunting is about time put in, but there's a lot of farms that you have to be super, super conservative with how you hunt with pressure and access and all that. And you certainly, the same rules still apply, but when they're cruising all of these funnels and CRPs, open fields, creek bottoms, stuff like that, they're traveling pretty far and they're running, they're doing their rounds. I think you're getting new deer almost every night. I don't think if you bump a buck sitting a spot, that buck was going to be a mile away by the end of that night anyway. And the next night, that new buck's not going to know anything of what happened the night before. So I think, the same general rules apply. You still want to watch your scent. You still want to hunt the right wind, obviously. You still want to be as quiet as possible. Disturb is the least amount that you can. But that was a cool and different way of hunting, and that was the observations I made compared to the way I'm used to hunting growing up and stuff. So yeah, the hunted that observation set day 1 afternoon after hanging those sets in the morning in the rain, and day 2 I actually hunted the set that we hung the morning before. And this wasn't as much of a travel corridor spot. It was on a scrape line, which is why we hung it, but it was on a scrape line near bedding. It wasn't a giant bedding area, but there were 2 small thickets behind the stand, and there was a scrape line running along the field edge. So we, hung the set, and I hunted it that morning or the next morning. And actually, when we were in there, and I don't know what people's thoughts are on this, but we actually walked through the draw in the middle of the farm and, wanted to find the most deer sign possible to figure out how they were using it and where to hang the best set. And while we were doing this, we were able to find the most fresh sign, and we actually bumped a buck, and in one bedding area we bumped a buck, and then in the other bedding area we actually bumped like 5 or 6 does. So we knew deer were using that bedding and the fresh scrape line that we also looked at there. So we were able to be confident in where we hung that set. Granted, I don't know, does that deer remember forever that we had spooked him there? Possibly, but at the same time, if you're going to go in there and hang a set, don't you want to for sure be on the fresh deer sign? And I mean, the rain is about your best chance to be able to do something like that. So yeah, you might be disturbing it. Ideally, you don't disturb it too much. I don't know. But that's what we did. And so the next morning, I hunted it the next morning. I saw 2 does, so maybe it was too soon yet. I don't know. I only saw 2 does, no bucks, and those does came directly from the bedding, the way we thought they would. So that was cool, to basically see deer where we thought they would be coming from. But that night and the next night that we hung the set, we were getting buck pictures on that scrape line. So I don't think that the 2 does, only seeing 2 does, was because of us being in there and disturbing everything, because we were still getting those bucks on camera that same night and then the next night already. So I just don't think that those bucks were daylighting or using it in the morning. It was also pretty crappy weather. It was like 25 mile an hour winds. I think it was like 35 degrees, cloudy, just a really crappy day to be outside. So I believe those deer were bedded down out of the wind and just trying to stay out of it, because that's what I would have been doing. It sucks sitting in a tree stand in that. But so backed out, I hunted till probably 10:30 and made a plan for day 2 afternoon. And day 2 afternoon, my buddy Quentin was actually able to hunt with me. So we and sorry, I didn't start this off with this, but I'm actually hunting with my buddy Mitch, and all of his areas and stuff. So he was, showing us around and helping us out and stuff like that. It was pretty cool to see how he hunts and, how he sees these farms differently than, I would or Quentin would. And, everyone has their own ideas, and you kind of convene together and, make a final plan. It's pretty cool to get everyone together, and everyone's experiences are different based on how they've deer hunted their entire lives. So yeah, really cool to figure out how to attack a farm based on each of our 3 experiences and throwing those together and figuring it out. So we all 3 got together, and we decided to hang a double set so that Quentin could sit with me that afternoon and film me. So this spot was another travel corridor between really big fields, and then it was basically a CRP field that we were hunting over in the middle of this travel, basically a funnel. And there was a little bit of, I don't know how many acres, probably 20 to 40 acres of thick woods in front of us. And basically we set it on where the funnel came from the big field and into the CRP. And the woods in front of us is where we saw most of our deer come out of. And then they would hit that, that funnel. So yeah, we hung the double and got in, and I don't know what time it was, but a beautiful full winter coat coyote came through, and I was getting ready to getting my bow to shoot. Quentin was getting ready to film. all that. And he spooked us. Coyote senses are just so good. And caught me out of the corner of his eye trying to draw. So he was gone, but beautiful coat on him for end of October, full winter coat. And then I think an hour or two went by, and then a doe came running through, like almost in basically the same spot that the coyote went last. So we were like, okay, is she getting chased from a coyote? And I was like, I don't know. That kind of looked like she was getting ran by a buck. And, sure enough, we hear a buck grunting in the woods, and we couldn't see him yet. It was pretty cool, to hear him before you see him. And it's like, what is he? What is he? How do we see him? And then he comes out, same spot the doe came out, right in front of us. And it was a small 7-point, and he was grunting and dogging her. And he had cool brow tines, and he looked fairly mature. I haven't reviewed the film on him yet, but he looked fairly mature, and the situation was cool. So I was standing up with my bow in my hand, just if that was a big one or not. So I was pretty much in kill mode at that point, and I was like, I don't know, let's try to call him in and then decide. So the doe had ran in front of him in the back right corner of the field, and we were on the low right corner of the field. So I grunted a few times, and he didn't pay any attention whatsoever. Then he started following on our trail again, basically leaving the field, the CRP field, and I snort wheezed at him as a last ditch effort, and he stopped on a dime, looked straight our way for like 3 seconds, and then he went right back on the doe trail. So he didn't come in, but I don't know. It was a super cool encounter, super awesome sitting with my buddy. And then I believe that was it for that night. But yeah, that was our first it's on, hot does. Does are getting hot, bucks are chasing. This is pretty cool. Then day 3 was opening day of waterfowl in Missouri. So we did not hunt deer on day 3. We hunted ducks. And the spot we were going to go to was on public, and we lost the spot. And so we were sitting there all that, the next hour trying to figure out where we were going to go. Anyone else that may have got mixed up and where to go with them and who to go with. And we ended up settling on a spot, and we shot 30 ducks that morning with, how many guys did we have? I believe we had 6 guys. So yeah, that was a super fun morning. And I busted out the new GoPro for that hunt. I filmed most of it, but my first shot I took, I had a connector piece basically on the barrel of the gun so that you could get kind of like a point of view of someone shooting a duck through the gun barrel. And yeah, first shot, it busted the connector piece, and GoPro fell in the marsh. I spent the next hour and a half with decoy gloves, searching for it, combing through the ground and the water. Never could turn it up. So that GoPro is a goner in its very first use. But that was super fun. Shot 30 ducks opening morning. It was kind of a mix of everything. Then day 3 afternoon, back on Whitetail. We were going to go hunt a shared permission farm, and there was already a double set hung for Quentin and I to both sit, and it was a shared permission farm. And so we showed up to hunt, and the other people with permission were actually hunting the same spot. So we obviously backed out, let them have it, let them hunt that for the night. It was also, at this point, youth rifle season in Missouri. So I believe they had a youth hunter in there with a rifle. So super cool that they were able to, get there before we did and let the youth hunter hunt instead of us messing up the youth hunter's plans for that night. But so we had to make an audible for that night real quick, and we rushed back to another set and had to basically we were going to hunt another travel corridor, and this was like just travel corridor, no other reason for deer to be in there. It's basically a bottom with cow pasture on both sides, and it had a single. There was already a stand there, but we had to hang the double for Quentin to sit with me, and the tree was absolutely terrible for hanging a double set, and it took us a little bit to figure it out, but we finally got it figured out, and we'd spooked 4 does going in and didn't see another deer the entire night. But so this is every single afternoon hunt, at least I've done this, almost every single afternoon hunt, you're like, you hit that 5 minutes of light left mark, and you're like, okay, I could kind of get ready and back down now with some light left, not have to use my headlamp. There's no deer around. I can get out without spooking anything. Maybe I should get down right now when it hits that 5 minute mark. Or it's like, you're playing the debate in your head. What are the odds something actually walks right under me in bow range in the next 5 minutes, and I've got a shot on it? Every time on an afternoon hunt, the answer is typically like, no, nothing's coming. I'm not going to shoot a deer in these next 5 minutes. So with the kind of, weird setup that we had to hang the double in the tree, and we hadn't seen a deer since we bumped the does going in. We hadn't seen another deer, so we were like, okay, we'll get out of here. There was also bucks daylight. I don't know if you want to call it daylighting, but they were showing up either right at dark or like 10 to 30 minutes after dark. So we were like, okay, we kind of want to get down before those bucks maybe cruise through. We don't want to spook them. And those 2 deer there was like a boxy 10. I don't know, he was probably 140, 145. And then there was a right kicker G2 10. He had a kicker off his right G2, and that was a pretty big deer. He's probably over 150. So those are the 2 deer that we were, expecting to see in there, or hoping to see. And, they'd been showing up right at dark or right after dark. And they'd been daylighting earlier in the year, but hadn't daylighted in a little bit. So 5 minutes before the end of shooting light hits, and we're like, okay, let's just start slowly packing up. We want to climb down with a little bit of light to be able to see, and we want to get down before these bucks cruise through here, and hopefully this stand is good for another night. So Quentin takes the camera off actually, that was another thing. The tree was not set up well enough to get a tree arm in for the camera. So Quentin was freehanding this entire hunt on the camera because it was not conducive for a tree arm. So Quentin we made the decision, and Quentin starts putting the camera in his backpack. And right as he zipped the top zipper on his backpack to put the camera in, I hear leaves crunch under us. And all I saw was decent frame, really big, body, neck and shoulders, buck cruising through. I mean, the first glance I got of him was at like 30 yards. So I hear the leaves crunch right as he zips that zipper, and I'm like, buck, buck, buck. I turned around and grabbed my bow. I said, I'm shooting. And so he had to unzip the zipper with this deer at 20 yards, carefully enough, quietly enough, and then grab the camera back out, turn it back on, make sure turn the screen back on to make sure he was on the deer. And I was turning around, grabbing my bow and, getting set to shoot. Then this deer, I don't know, he was at 15 yards probably, and he starts walking back. I pull back, get him to stop, smacked him at 18 yards, did a mule kick, and jumped a cattle pasture fence once to leave, and then jumped back over it, and he was dead. Right, he died right in front of us, rolled around. He was dead within, I don't know, probably 20 seconds of shooting him, and within 50 yards, he didn't go 50 yards. So that's probably the quickest bow kill I've ever had. Just, it was actually a double lung shot, which I thought it was a heart shot because of how much blood was spraying in, the mule kick after the shot. I thought I had heart shotted him, and then, getting up to him, checking it out, it was actually a double lung. But that's probably the quickest bow kill I've ever had. It was within 20 seconds and 50 yards right in front of us. So I was going crazy, the adrenaline rush of literally going to pack up, and not even 30 seconds later, you've got a deer dead in front of you. So I'm pumped up, shaking, like, when do you climb down? It's getting dark, all that. And yeah, we were trying to just process what had just happened. It happened so fast. And every single afternoon hunt you ever go on, just, what are the odds that something walks under me during these next 5 minutes of shooting light? It's too dark anyway, or the camera can't see. And it was pretty dark on camera, I will say that, but that didn't stop me. So we climbed down, call everyone, and walk up to the deer. And at this point, we didn't know what deer it was or how big the deer was, anything like that. We had just seen decent frame, really big neck and shoulders. He's at 15 yards. We're shooting. And so at that point, we climbed down, wait for Mitch to come. He had hunted somewhere else for the afternoon, and, recover the deer. And really fast, we were all saying, like, his body's huge. That is a very big bodied deer. I don't know what he scored. It was an 8-point. He had some small kickers at the bases. I haven't checked his teeth out yet. I meant to do that. But kickers at the bases, weighed 210, field dressed. My guess is that deer was just not going to amount to much score-wise ever, and was kind of past his prime, and, dwindling down a little bit. But super cool 8-point with a few kickers on the bases. Big old body. Super awesome how it happened like that. I was able to have Quentin with me. And, just that kind of experience with a buddy by your side, and, other buddies waiting to hear how you did. Happened within 30 seconds of even seeing the deer. The deer's dead. So that was just an awesome experience. And so, yeah, that was my first hunt of the year. That kicked off a 5 or 6 big game hunt season for me. I don't know for sure what it amounts to yet, how many I'm going on. But, shot 30 ducks in the morning, killed a buck with a buddy at night. Couldn't ask for a better day of hunting in Missouri. Then, got them, cut up, got them hanging that night, and then immediately went to duck hunt the next morning, and we were able to shoot 10 ducks the next morning. We didn't have very good wind, and, the spot we hunted was not quite loaded up as what we had hoped yet. but super cool. Yeah, shot 10 ducks. Basically, it was just a all around hunting week with a few friends. You know, if the ducks are good, we'll go hunt ducks, and if we're not hunting ducks, we'll go whitetail hunt. And yeah, it was an awesome 4 days in Missouri. So a lot. I mean, I learned a ton on this trip, just talking with other people that hunt whitetails and their experiences from hunting different farms and stuff, their outlook on what weather matters, what wind direction matters, when they think bucks will get on their feet versus when I think bucks will get on their feet, how much scrapes matter, how much bedding matters, how much pressure or access matters, that type of stuff. It was just super cool learning from everyone that was there and their perspective on it. And that's something I challenge everyone that may be listening to do is it doesn't have to be a whole group of guys or hunters, but just talk with other hunters and see, what their perspective is on something, Send them a trail cam picture. Hey, is this deer 3.5 or 4.5? Or, why do you think this is where the bedding is? This is where the food is. Why did this deer show up at this time on this day? That type of thing. Just bounce ideas off each other. That goes with it. That's with anything in life. Everyone's going to have a different experience or perspective based on their personal experiences. And you can basically learn much faster by learning from their experiences instead of having to go through those experiences yourself. You can already have, a peace of mind when that next situation hits, and now you may have a better idea of why that deer daylighted on that day, at that time, that type of thing. So that's something I encourage everyone to do, whether it's waterfowl, big game, whitetail hunting, is just bounce ideas off of other hunters and give your perspective, and then really listen to their perspective, because your perspective is going to be very biased on what you've seen and all of those things. But if someone's hunted more than you, they may have tenfold the experiences and lessons learned from, as you would. So like this was kind of my first real time hunting, basically only travel corridors, versus the way I've hunted, the same family farm for the last 12 to 15 years. I've just gotten kind of so accustomed to how to hunt that specific farm. It was super cool to learn all of the ins and outs of basically a new property to me, and also how they view that property, how they see it, and how they hunt it, and then what you can expect with the different styles of hunting. And another thing is hunt with buddies. Stay true to that side of hunting instead of just, I got a hardcore hunt for this, 160-inch deer that if I don't kill him, life sucks. It's very easy to dive into that hole versus just a week of hunting with buddies, whether it be with waterfowl, whitetail, just a week of strategizing. This is what I saw, telling stories, and just being with each other in the field. To me, that's hunting to me. And I've really gotten back to that this year of what hunting is to me and staying true to that. And I'm sure I'll venture off and, put the pressure on myself again. But I think hunting with friends or family, that deer camp vibe, the duck camp vibe, that type of thing really brings you back and helps you remember what hunting is actually about. And it's just very easy to, listen to anything on social media or see everyone killing big deer. Maybe you get a few big deer and you really, really want to kill one. It's very easy to just dive into that hole of, I'm going to hunt this 160-inch deer for the rest of the season as hard as I can. It is my life for the next 3 months. I don't want to do anything else. Yes, obviously you have to put in the time and strategize and all that to kill a big deer. But when you're in that rabbit hole, it's very easy to get lost and not remember what got you into hunting and why hunting is fun. So that was a super cool week of just hunting is fun. Let's just go hunt with buddies for a week. That's kind of my take on that. So I was actually planning on being there hunting whitetails until the November 1st, and I killed on the 28th, I believe. So I actually was able to make a quick run over to Illinois to the family farm and hunt with my grandpa for a few days. Last minute, very last minute, just called him on a whim. I was like, hey, you want to go hunt for a few days, for 2.5 days? So that was super cool that I was able to kill early and still go hunt with my grandpa. Didn't get anything in Illinois for those 2.5 days, but saw a ton of deer, and it was super fun getting, seeing. That was side by side of like the different styles of hunting different farms. I got to immediately jump back into what I was used to and really see the differences. And yeah, I was able to sneak in 2.5 days of hunting with my grandpa, which obviously you never take those days for granted. I was hoping basically for the strategy there for the 2.5 days where these 2 bucks, possibly 3. I don't know if the one was a shooter or not yet. Hadn't seen him in real life, but 3 bucks were doing this loop of just checking scrapes from, they had a bedding area and a main trail, and they were all 3 hitting the same 3 cameras every once in a while, and they were all 3 doing this loop and basically just checking scrapes on this loop. And I was just sitting in different spots on that loop the entire 2.5 days, and I had a few decent bucks do it perfect. Elected to pass on 145-inch 8-point that we believe was 3.5 or 4.5 years old. So probably a good thing that he got to live. But that was the biggest deer I was able to get a chance at for those 2.5 days. But yeah, it's super cool that I was able to kill early in Missouri after hunting with buddies and still go squeeze in 2.5 days of hunting with my grandpa and get a lot of action. It was super good. And it was just turning on, getting really good in Illinois there right when I left. I had to leave for a Canada waterfowl hunt. So it was just getting super good at the Illinois farm as I was leaving. A lot of bucks were starting to chase and, read the script perfectly. I actually rattled for the first time of the year there, and it felt pretty cool. So hope everyone is having a good season. I believe that wraps us up on my Missouri whitetail hunt / waterfowl / Illinois whitetail because I was able to kill. Yeah, thanks for listening, and catch you on the next one. Thank you for listening. You can find us on any social media platform, podcast platform, and YouTube. Hunt Vision or Hunt Vision Co. That's Hunt Vision CO. Bye.